Hi, everybody. Welcome on in. Make yourself at home. We're going to let folks continue to join us. So as people are hopping on, we would love it if everyone would introduce themselves in the chat box. You can include your name, and if you're with a city, county, state government, nonprofit, CBO, a company, just let us know who you are and what organization you're with. All right, I see people starting to do that already. Great. Well, hey, we're really excited and happy you all have joined us. We have a good crowd that's going to be joining us today. So thanks for all your interest. I'm really pleased to welcome you to today's webinar. It's co-hosted by the Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition, LGSEC, and the California Climate and Energy Coalition. So that's CCEC. And we are going to be with you for the next hour. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Angie Hacker. I'll be today's moderator. I serve as CCEC's statewide best practices coordinator and have been working in community scale sustainability for about 20 years. And I have spent actually a lot of those years in local government trying to empower residents to take action. And a lot of you have been doing the same work. So if you're out there, you've been trying to crack this code, you know that it could be really tricky work. Now it's fairly easy, maybe in a climate action plan, to identify a need, the need to address activities that are controlled by our residents and our constituents, which can account for sometimes much over half of a municipality's emissions. But actually getting to the point of implementing it and addressing this need effectively means helping thousands of community members overcome barriers to addressing their home energy use or transportation or waste. So we get to talk about today, how do you balance the right set of strategies, information services, motivational messaging, financial assistance, contractual engagement, all these things. How do you do it? So we're really glad that you're here for an important conversation on this topic, where we have speakers that have joined us from the Community Climate Solutions and Ecology Action, who I get to introduce in just a moment. Now, off the bat here, I'll say, sadly, Amanda Leonis from the city of San Jose had an emergency, so she won't be able to join us today, but our other speakers are going to pitch in and present her slides, so we're very thankful for that. Right, next slide, please. So some good news to start off with here. We just wanted to take a moment to say a big thank you to those who donated when registering for this webinar, and we were able to raise $225. So thank you for that. If you'd like to donate, you can follow the link in the chat, and all donations are tax deductible and help support LGSEC's mission to help local governments shape California's clean energy future. And I think before we dive in, let's just tell you a little bit more about our co-hosts. So I wanted to familiarize you with the two Civic Well programs that are co-hosting our webinar today. So first, we'll tell you a little bit more about Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition. LGSEC works to advance local government leadership on clean energy and climate resilience through regulatory action, policy, and programs. Its membership network has successfully orchestrated the formation of local government partnerships, regional energy networks, and community choice aggregation programs. So you can learn more about LGSEC at lgsec.org. And next is the California Climate and Energy Collaborative, CCEC. CCEC is a hub for energy efficiency and sustainability news, information, best practices, and resources relevant to California's local governments. CCEC aims to support California local government's efforts to save energy, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and accelerate climate action by building knowledge and networks amongst local government practitioners and their partners. You can learn more about all of our services at eecoordinator.info. Right, and so these are sister programs, and they're offering different but complementary services that we hope you're all taking advantage of. We'll be sending some links in the chat so you can stay connected with our resources and offerings, sign up for email lists, or get in touch with us. So with that, let's dig into our webinar today. The agenda is pretty straightforward. We were so pleased to hear from the organizations that are here with us today that they had something they were really interested in sharing with you. So we're going to hear from our speakers for just over 30 minutes, then have time for Q&A after. So make sure as they are presenting that you are sending your questions using the Q&A box throughout the webinar. And we're going to go ahead and address those towards the end. We'll take care of those at the end. Now I get the honor of actually introducing our speakers of the day. So first, we're going to hear from Lisa Altieri, the president and founder of Community Climate Solutions. Lisa has over 10 years of experience in community organizing on climate change, business management, and data system design. She holds a BS and an MS from UC Berkeley in environmental economics. And after she presents, we're going to hear from Kirsten Lisk, the Vice President of Community Programs at Ecology Action. Since joining the organization in 1999, Kirsten has propelled Ecology Action to be the go-to partner for environmental programs serving communities across California. Driven by her personal mission to make California communities healthier and more sustainable places to live and work, she is dedicated to creating programs that help communities thrive. So we're excited to hear all about that. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Lisa. And then, like I said, don't forget to put your questions in the Q&A. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Angie. And thank you to the Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition and the California Climate and Energy Collaborative for the invitation and opportunity to present today. So we're really excited to present and connect with all of you. So thank you all for joining today. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kick off the presentation here. There we go. Can everyone see my screen okay? Perfect. So just to start off, I am the founder of Community Climate Solutions, and our mission is to help cities and counties and communities empower their residents to take action on climate change and build more resilient communities. And just quickly, how did I get here and who I am? I have done a lot of community organizing around environment and climate for a long time. And then I also was a volunteer for 5 years in my own community of Palo Alto, volunteering to help the city reach residents and to help them learn about solutions and take actions to lower their emissions towards the citywide goal. So I've done this on the ground before we had our current program and platform, and I just saw the amazing power and opportunity to move solutions forward and really help to meet climate goals through empowering the community and bringing them into the conversation. So before we get started, I'd actually like to start off with a question. So if we go ahead and launch our first Zoom poll. So the question is, where are you in your climate action or sustainability resilience plan development process? Is your plan completed and you're working on implementation? Is your plan development in process? Or do you have a plan? Are you planning to start working on your plan next year or beyond? Or are you not decided to do a plan yet? So go ahead and vote and we'll see. Have a chance to see where everyone is at. And then, yeah, please go ahead and show the results whenever everyone's ready. Great, that's fantastic. It's wonderful to see the range of folks jumping in and working on this, and how many. We have a lot of folks that are on implementation or with their plan in progress or planning to get started. So fantastic. Thank you all for participating. So I'm going to start off by talking about, let me see here. There we go. The nav button wasn't working. I'm going to start off by talking about residential emissions. So in a standard emissions inventory for cities, the standard residential emissions that are measured are household electricity use, household heating fuel use, like natural gas, propane, or fuel oil, household transportation, household waste generation. So those are the four main categories that are usually in an emissions inventory in California. However, they're not always measured like this. So generally, the transportation sector is just measured as a whole without household portion split out. And sometimes you have your building energy use split out into residential versus commercial, and sometimes not. So wanted to ask the question, based on your information and for your community, what percentage of your city emissions do you think come from household sources? And if you don't have that information, make your best guess. So here we have under 20, 20 to 40%, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, or over 80%. We'll take a second and wait for everyone to finish, and then please display the results. Wow, you all really are on top of this. So 40 to 60% is the average across most cities in California. So that's great. And there's definitely a wide range. The cities really vary in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and see, we'll go to the next slide. So that's what we found. So, and we were working with a lot of communities across California and beyond. And we have dug in with our cities to really look at that data and take the transportation segment and pull that apart a little bit and make a good conservative estimate about what percentage of that transportation bucket is really coming from households, and look at what the household impact is in the communities for the emissions. And we find that on average, household emissions are 40 to 60% of a total city emissions. And so looking at a few of the cities that we're partnering with, for San Jose, that came out around 40%, which is common for a larger city with a lot of industrial and business segments. For Fremont, it's a little bit over 50%. And for Piedmont, California, which is a community that is primarily residential, then it's over 85%. So the question is, how do we reach those residential emissions? And so I want to talk a little bit about the power of a combination of policy and engagement. So when we look at how do we reach those household emissions to lower and reduce those in order to meet climate goals, there's a lot of policy options available, but they don't always get us 100% of the way. So for example, if we're looking at electrifying transportation, so the city can install EV charging stations and require charging infrastructure on new buildings or multifamily, but it's can't really go as far as mandating that residents are going to buy electric cars. However, it looks like we have a new initiative statewide that's really going to help with that. But in the interim and in general, there are policies that you can do, but if you combine those policies with engagement to reach out to the community, bring your residents into the conversation and help them learn the importance of these specific actions and choices that they have to make and how impactful they are around climate change, that really makes a powerful combination of combining those policy elements with that engagement. In the city of Palo Alto, where I was very involved initially in doing that volunteer work, we had this amazing benefit of a $1,200 to $1,500 rebate for fuel switching from a heat pump water heater to from a gas water heater to a heat pump water heater. And I know I was one of the people that took advantage of it, but in the first couple of years, but I think there were less than 10 people. And it was an amazing program, but people in the community didn't know about it and they didn't really understand. If you ask most people in the community about a heat pump water heater, they would say heat pump what? So there is a real role and a power to combine those two things together. So, and residents want to help. So according to Yale Opinion Map, 73% of Californians are worried about climate change and they want to help, they want to take an action, but they don't know where to start and they don't know what to do. A lot of folks, as I just mentioned, they don't know what heat pump technology is. They don't know the power of taking action, taking those actions on climate and how they can help in their daily lives. And there's so much they can do. And we have viable solutions that are either affordable for everyone or on the cusp of being widely affordable for a lot of the household level actions. And then others are things that, you know, we want to look at providing support to residents to do those actions. So actually, before we do this, so I'm going to ask the last question here. So a last poll is, have you thought about including community engagement on climate solutions in your plan? So we have, yes, we're already doing some community engagement. Yes, we're planning on doing community engagement in the future. Yes, we're thinking about including community engagement in our plan, or no, we haven't thought about it yet. Oh, wow, fantastic. So a lot of you are already doing some community engagement. That's fantastic. And a lot of you are thinking about it. Great. Okay, so then the question is, what works? And oftentimes, the traditional approach to engagement with cities is often information sessions or presentations. And those are great to provide information to the community, but they've been shown not to really move the needle on engagement and really activating the community. And so we've been working with communities now for over 5 years, specifically to focus in on this and look at what really works and what are some of the approaches that can start to move the needle and really get the community engaged around taking actions. And so these are the 6 things that we find really impactful. A place, a way for residents to find easy to follow and use information to learn about solutions and find resources for taking action. Events and activities like EV ride and drive, composting classes, etc. And then the model that we really employ a lot, which is empowering community leaders and existing social groups. So leveraging the amazing leaders that you have in your community across different types of social groups and networks to be able to come together as a community and learn about solutions and take action together. Community-based social marketing to highlight solutions as well as the programs you have available. Provide or connect residents with incentives and financing options, and then other types of community outreach, including examples of like educating local contractors about heat pump technology or other solution options that you need to really create that environment and infrastructure to really support residential action. So we, as I mentioned, we've been doing this for 5 years, really digging in with communities and looking at how do we do this and coming up with what we're seeing is working in those 6 areas. And ultimately, the best approach is to have an integrated strategy where you have some social marketing, community-based social marketing, you have a good platform to provide information, good leader-based, leader-empowered engagement as well, and outreach, and all of these other things sort of brought together into one comprehensive initiative. And so what we did initially when we first started working with cities, we saw some of these challenges. And so we wanted to dig in and prove out some of these approaches that we've been talking about. And so we did a pilot in Fremont. Fremont was our first platform. They were our beta and they came on board in 2018. And so, but in the first couple of years of the program, they weren't able to really get much traction, and they really didn't have a budget for engagement. So the platform was there, but they really didn't have a lot of time spent on actually getting out in the community and doing engagement to use the platform to take actions and get residents engaged. So in the first couple of years, they did some tabling every year at the Earth Day event, and they'd have people create an account for a light bulb. And they had a couple of Civic Sparks Fellows do a couple of student events where students got a prize for getting households to create an account. And so there was a lot of focus on creating an account, but there wasn't really a focus on that follow-through engagement model. And so you can see here in the first 2 years, they got almost 500 households signed up, but the households weren't really following through and taking actions. So we did a pilot program starting in November, the end of November of 2021 during COVID through April of 2022 into early May. And we did 10 hours of, we had our lead community organizer do 10 hours a week of engagement in the Fremont community over that 6-month period. And for 10 hours a week, we were able to get over 1,000 households engaged and active. They reduced around 700 tons of CO2e, saved over $200,000 water, and then completed nearly 2,000 actions. So our model for this particular pilot was a leader-based model, where what we did is we talked with Rachel DeFranco from the Fremont program, and the leader for our program at the city. And so we asked her to identify some people she thought it'd be good for us to reach out to, some leaders in the community that might be interested in bringing their community in to work together on this. And then we also did some primary research to find some additional leaders in the community that we thought would be good to reach out to. So in November, we started reaching out to them and invited them to a meeting to come and just learn about what the Fremont Green Challenge program, and invariably they all got really excited and loved the idea of bringing their community in to work on this challenge together. What we found was that people really felt this was incredibly important. Their communities wanted to work on this. And we work with communities across the spectrum, from schools and youth groups to faith communities, to Rotary clubs and service organizations, the gardening club and the neighborhood group. So we worked really across the community with different types of existing groups. And they all basically said, we really want to work on this, but we haven't had a framework. So providing them a framework to come together as a group and do this work together, learn about solutions, support each other, take action, track their progress, was really meaningful for them. So this is an example of just a couple of the initiatives or the couple of the groups that we worked with in Fremont. So one was the Girl Scouts. We worked with the Girl Scout service unit that had 50 different Girl Scout troops. They created they wanted a 5-week challenge, so we worked with them to create a 5-week challenge that met their program interests. And they created their own. The students, or the Girl Scouts, created their own badge for this. They tracked their impact, and they really accomplished a lot. They ran the program again in the beginning of this year, and they plan to continue running it every year. We also worked with faith communities. As I mentioned, we had, with that model, was more monthly topic-based challenges with monthly themes that were highlighted during services and youth group meetings and newsletters, and some gatherings and celebrations. And then we also work with educators. So it's very stressful often for students to learn about climate change. And so we created a program, a curriculum for a supplemental activity that teachers could use in the classroom for grades 8 through 12 that made it a simple, fun exercise one day in the classroom that really allowed students to learn more about their household impact, what the sources and solutions to climate change are, and the sources of the emissions, and then explore some of the actions that they could take, that they had agency now to take. And we've had incredibly good feedback from teachers and students that this has been really powerful and really helpful for the students to feel like they have that agency and to really understand the solutions pathway better. And then I was going to take a minute and show you the Bright Action platform, which is the online tool that we use along with our programs, but I am a little bit concerned about time. So basically, let me see if I can show a couple of really quick screens just to show you through this. What we do, this is an online platform, and we customize it so that it is really customized for every local community. So every community we work with, they have their own, logo and branding. So you can see this is Contra Costa County. This is the city of Fremont. This is Chula Vista, California. And this is a small community of Albany in the Bay Area. So we work with all different size communities, and we really work with them to create programs that reflect their local community and culture. For new, when residents create an account, they have a very simple 3 steps to get going. They create a household profile, which is our analytics. And so I want to say something about that briefly. So when I started doing this, in Palo Alto, in my own backyard, we looked for a carbon calculator that would be accurate, and we could not find one that was accurate for our city. We have a Muni, and then there was just a lot of reasons why the carbon calculators out there weren't working. So when we decided to do this, we built a custom carbon calculator that's the most robust household carbon calculator out there. So when we work with the city, we put in all the local metrics and parameters around utility carbon intensity and local pricing for energy and and water, and to make sure that the analytics that we have on our site are really robust. So users can fill out a profile here where they can answer a few questions. It only takes about 5 minutes or so. And we have a link for the large utilities in California to just automatically add your data in. And then once you finish that, you're able to see the results of where you're starting from and where you have an opportunity to make a difference. You can see how you can compare with others, and then choose action. So we have a robust action set here, addressing fuel switching at home and clean energy, transportation, food and waste, and then we have energy efficiency, as well as water efficiency, community is civic engagement and volunteering. And then we just recently added in a resilience category that has a full set of FEMA-based emergency preparedness actions that help people prepare at the household level, and then also prepare at the community level, connect with community, share resources, and grow your own food, and all of the other resilience things that are becoming so important right now for families. And then every action has a page. If you want to work on an action, you can choose that action and learn a little bit more. So you can see our analytics here a little bit better. Users can often answer a question to drill down into what they're likely to do, and then immediately see an estimate on how much you're going to save, or it will cost them after they do the action on it, sort of the ongoing costs. And then the points are tied to impact. So 1 point is equal to 1 pound of CO2e per year, or 10 gallons of water. So we really wanted to make sure the points were going to reflect the impact of the action. And then if they want some tips and tricks, we have an intro and then 2 to 5 steps on how to complete that action. And then we also have the ability for cities and counties to load in all the resources that are available for residents so they can find those right away. And then finally, they can track their progress and see all their actions here, see how much they can save or reduce their impact if they take all their actions. And the average household can save $1,000 to $3,000 a year by taking the common actions across our site. And then up here, they can also earn badges and levels for the actions that they're taking. And then finally, and probably most importantly, we have pages. So when folks are using our program in community with each other, we have a page for those communities, groups and teams. They get a page to track their progress together, see their impact, share, and connect. And then most importantly, this is meant to be a support for all of the in-person or Zoom-based engagement activities that we have built into the program. That's the most important part, is that we really make sure that our job is to help connect people and build community in all of the programs that we do. And then finally, there's a page for your city. So here you can see the total of what's being accomplished across the city, and you can see all the groups and teams in the leaderboard. So I'm going to go back to the presentation here. So, and I'm going to hand it over. Hold on a second. Let me go back to slideshow. And I'm going to hand it over to Kirsten. And as Angie mentioned, Kirsten Lisk is the Vice President of Community Programs for Ecology Action.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me now? Great. Thanks for the prompt on that, Angie. Again, thanks so much, Lisa. And even before I start, I want to acknowledge everybody here on this call today. If you're here, you've been caring, thinking, and working hard trying to figure out ways we can all help people and planet thrive through this time of both social and climate crisis. So deeply appreciative to be in community with you, working for this very important, better future. Ecology Action has had this mission since Earth Day 1970. That's where I work. We're based in Santa Cruz, but we operate nationally. We established the first recycling program in our region. And since then, we've gone on to partner with public agencies time and time again, nonprofits and businesses, to pilot, demonstrate, and mainstream solutions to the environmental challenges of the day. So you can imagine over the past few years, if your community is at all like ours, ourselves, our city partners at City of Santa Cruz, we realized there really wasn't a one-stop shop place to go for residents to really be clear on what are the most important things they can do, how do they do it, and what are the resources. So we started looking for ways to provide that information to our community, and also wondered if other communities in the Central Coast might be kind of in the same boat and maybe we could work together. So Tiffany Wise West from City of Santa Cruz applied for, in partnership with City of San Luis Obispo, for a USDN peer learning exchange grant that we got, and we convened a nonprofit, public agency, and equity group representative from 5 Central Coast counties to just explore, do we have enough commonality to work on things together or not? And this project of really providing a community action campaign rose to one of the top priorities that we realized we could work on. And out of that, we've had this wonderful working group leading on it over the past couple of years to develop it. And during that time, we also learned about a citizen-led effort in San Luis Obispo called the Slow Climate Coalition Micro Community Collaborative. And they were right there with us. They were wanting to find tools and resources to activate the community. And they had organized a deep dive research project to look at online tools and platforms, everything from kind of Lead for Communities to Building Resilient Neighborhoods out of Canada to Cool Blocks to the Bright Action Platform and Community Climate Solutions. So we joined forces and we all came to the conclusion that the Bright Action Platform was the fabulous online tool, and Community Climate Solutions, the nonprofit that supports it, also provides curriculum and other activation resources for the community. So together, the SLOW group and our resilient, what's now called the Resilient Central Coast campaign, moved forward to develop our campaign. And our initial approach was, let's just get these platforms online. Cities and counties don't have the resources to develop their own comprehensive tool set like this, and not having online accessible tools is a form of inequity, really. Not all cities and counties are even going to be able to afford outreach, but if we can get these online tools available, every resident can have access in English and Spanish to it. So I'm excited to report that we've enrolled almost 24 public agency and nonprofit partners from the 6 county Central Coast region. I see many on the call today. Thank you so much. And we are excited that we've chosen the Bright Action Calculator for all the reasons Lisa just mentioned. It has local and household specific metrics. We can link to resources. There's stuff available, and all the information is available in Spanish. We can put on events. So we're really excited to have chosen that and have worked together and gotten funding. We've pooled funding from these 24 public agencies and nonprofit partners to really start setting up the backbone of the campaign. And so Lisa, if you want to advance the next slide, we're excited to report that as of this spring, we've been able to launch the site in San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara County, and Santa Cruz County, with several specific city pages nested within those. Ventura, Monterey, and San Benito County are coming up next this summer. So we're soon to have completed our first phase 1 of our campaign, and our next steps are going to be continuing to develop engagement and outreach support to leverage the platform. But already we have dozens of people signing up, and all we've done is posted the platforms online and in some cases put out a few social media posts. So if you live in any of these areas, we'd love for you to check out the platforms. You can see the websites right here, and you can see, as Lisa mentioned, each area has been able to customize it with their own photos, their own welcome letter, their own key messages. And by working together, we've been able to develop a centralized branding. Ecology Action will be providing centralized social media and outreach support, and we're working together to more efficiently develop outreach and engagement plans that we'll be rolling out in the year ahead. Next slide, Lisa. And during the time we were working on this, Cal Poly, through our San Luis Obispo partners, shared that there was this exciting California for All College Corps program, which is funding students to work on climate action, food security, and I think one other thing throughout the whole state. We supported Cal Poly to apply for an aggressive grant to support over 300 students in climate action, and we were excited that they received the funding. So partnering with Community Climate Solutions and our Resilient Central Coast campaign, we're going to be leveraging the platforms now and using it to train and support 75 College Corps fellows who will serve as community organizers, mobilizing action on the Central Coast. So they receive, I think, $8,500 a year between an educational stipend and a payment stipend for completing this, basically a part-time fellowship during their school year. It'll help them graduate without having to take other jobs. They also will be getting valuable training and professional development on topics ranging from community organizing to environmental justice to media and marketing strategies. They will do everything from conducting outreach in their dorms, neighborhood cities, work with clergy, parent groups. They may organize citywide challenges. They will be developing their own outreach plan for how they want to leverage their networks and their knowledge and their connections to engage groups to use the platform to take measurable actions. So the goal is that the fellows we're working with will reach 5,000 Central Coast households to reduce carbon emissions and increase community resiliency while saving money. So we're thrilled that they're going to be involved, and we'll be excited to be providing them some really great training and professional development along the way. And I'm hoping to hire some when they're done. So I know we're just getting started. We don't have the kind of results to share like Lisa has shared from Fremont. And we're really excited that our whole Central Coast now, by the end of the summer, will have access to English and Spanish information online that's local and customized. I really want to thank Tiffany Wise-West from City of Santa Cruz as being my initial spark for this. And then my key partners, leadership partners that help make this a reality: Ashley Watkins from County of Santa Barbara, Kathy King, Community Environmental Council, and Emily Gottlieb, who's now with us at Ecology Action, but volunteered for a full year to help develop the program. We also have received our first grant funding from Central Coast Community Energy to help promote the platform in the community for electrification action. So thanks to Central Coast Community Energy. So not a lot of results yet, but a lot of great cooperation. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody about how it's been working to have multiple public agencies go together to try and pool resources to make this a reality in their community.
Right. Thank you, Kirsten.
Yeah, thank you, Kirsten, so much. And huge apologies. I forgot that Kirsten wasn't the one sharing the slides. I was writing down the questions so I can make sure I answer everything. So huge apologies. As Angie mentioned, Amanda had an emergency and wasn't able to join us today. She was really looking forward to this. And so I'm going to be presenting her slides, and she wanted me to communicate that she would be happy to talk with anyone that's attending today as a follow-up. If you want to reach out to her, I'm going to share her contact information at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to talk, cover, let's see here, here we go. For this presentation, I'm going to talk about the Climate Smart San Jose program, the Climate Smart San Jose Challenge, which is in partnership with Community Climate Solutions, and a Go Green Teams pilot that we've been co-developing, the pilot program and our lessons learned. And then also James Curry Smith Air District grant that CCS is working on in the city of San Jose. So Climate Smart San Jose is a community-wide initiative to reduce air pollution, save water, and improve the quality of life in San Jose. In 2018, the City Council approved the Climate Smart San Jose program, addressing emissions from energy, water, and transportation, and setting emissions targets aligned with the Paris Agreement. In 2021, the Council adopted a carbon neutrality goal of by 2030, and that's accelerated the Climate Smart program. Climate Smart goals. And actually, I want to mention before I go on, actually, I didn't introduce Amanda since she's not here, but Amanda Leonis is the Supervising Environmental Service Specialist for the Climate Smart San Jose program, and that's through the Environmental Services Department. So I wanted to, she's our main contact for the Climate Smart Outreach and Engagement Program. So the Climate Smart goals are to reduce drive-alone vehicle trips to only 40% of all trips by 2040, cut household energy use in half by 2040, reduce residential water consumption per person by 30% by 2030, and accelerate electrification in buildings and transportation. Reaching the carbon neutrality goal by 2030 will require focus and an acceleration of the Climate Smart effort. And these are the Climate Smart focus areas: energy, land use, water, and transportation. So in 2019, San Jose decided to partner with Community Climate Solutions to bring the community on board to foster involvement in climate action. And so the Climate Smart Challenge is the Bright Action platform for San Jose. And then we rolled that out in 2019. And we've been working with San Jose on engagement, some engagement programs that they were launching directly. And then last year, in 2021. They reached out to us because they wanted to create a team version of the Climate Smart Challenge. So it's called the Go Green Teams, and the challenge is for residents to work together with their neighbors or friends or family, or it can be done through a community organization. And there's a series of 9 interactive meetings where each meeting has videos and activities and discussions, and all the materials are provided to the folks participating in the team. So it's very plug and play, very easy to use. And the topics include home energy, transportation, food and waste, community action, which includes civic engagement and volunteering, water conservation, and community resilience, which includes both household emergency preparedness and community resilience activities and actions. So a little bit of the background and timeline on the Go Green Teams program. So the city had been looking into the Cool Blocks Challenge, and they'd initially tried that route, but decided instead that they wanted to develop their own team program. And so they reached out to us to co-develop that. The recruitment period for our pilot was December 2021 through April 2022, and we started the pilot trainings in January. The recruitment was via email to people interested originally that had showed interest in the Cool Blocks Challenge, also out to community-based organizations and neighborhood associations, and then also on social media. And then we started the trainings in late January, and then they went through April. And we'll be wrapping up this phase, this pilot phase, in September. And most of the teams have either completed or about to complete their meetings. So the lessons learned and highlights that we have 25 teams that have either completed or are finishing their meetings soon. The overall feedback from team leaders and members has been very positive. They love the meeting format and all the resources and the activities and discussions, and they have been finding it very engaging and community building and meaningful. We also had team leader connect sessions for team leaders to connect with one another to talk about challenges and successes. And then a couple initial lessons learned. We found that it's very important to start the team leader recruitment process earlier with a coordinated and very broad effort. And then also we've learned that the team leaders that chose to recruit neighbors found it a little more challenging if they weren't already connected with their neighbors than recruiting their friends or other folks that they're connected with already through existing social networks. But we work with them for those that chose to recruit their neighbors, because that was definitely a really big goal that we encouraged, because they were able to really focus in on the resilience piece in working with their neighbors. So we work with them to help them to be successful in recruiting neighbors for the team program. So we're going to be doing some additional deep dive into the lessons learned and in the next couple of months. And then from that learning, we're going to take those the lessons and the input that we get from this first phase and bring that into the program that we will start to work on launching actually in the fall for next year. So we'll be able to improve the program and based on what we're learning so far and expand it out. The benefit of the program is that it's really flexible to be able to use with neighbors on your block or your friends or your book club or your faith community, or we have a Rotary Club in San Jose that's doing it. So we have a lot of different types of groups that are using the program. So it's really flexible and really able to expand. And I wanted to mention a couple of things about our platform. It is completely available in Spanish. There's a full Spanish translation. It's not a Google widget. And our priority as a program is to be as inclusive as possible. We are working with a UX firm right now to create an update to our front end design and their focus specifically is designing for inclusion and equity. And so, and we're also going to have an app version in that design. So that design is, we're working on it right now, and we'll be rolling that out early next year is the plan. So the last thing I want to mention is that we also, Community Climate Solutions, received a grant, a James Carey Smith grant from the AIR District, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, to work with Cal and virus screen neighborhoods in San Jose. So we're also rolling that out right now. And the goal of the grant is to educate community members on the sources and impacts of air pollution and empower residents with tools to reduce impacts at home and participate in civic engagement and to advocate for community-wide solutions. So our approach to that is we've hired a local-based Spanish-speaking promotora, and she'll be taking the lead on community outreach and engagement and hosting some engaging interactive community events with tools and solutions co-hosted by local community leaders. So that is something that we're just developing the plan right now. We're planning to roll out those events in the fall. So as I mentioned, one of our major goals really is to be inclusive with our programs. And so finally, I wanted to provide Amanda's contact information. Please feel free to reach out to her after the webinar today, and she welcomes questions, and she'd be happy to talk with you. And then finally, I'll give you a minute on the contact information. And Kirsten, if you could put your contact information in the chat as well, that would be, if you're open to having questions afterwards, that would be great. And then I'll also include my contact information here if you're interested in learning more. And with that, I will hand it back over to Angie for questions. I saw some really great questions in the chat. And again, huge apologies for trying to read those questions too soon.
That was no problem, no big deal. So thank you both, Lisa and Kirsten. And Kirsten, you're doing some good work in my neck of the woods. So thanks for all of that. I'm on the Central Coast. It's nice to see. So we have received a good amount of questions. Probably won't get to all of them. However, I think I want to start with some of the kind of more nuts and bolts questions that came up just on this platform. And I think a lot of folks, including me, are thinking, putting our hat on about how do we replicate or scale up these kinds of things? How can more communities take advantage of it? So there was a question about who hosts the platforms that were shared and is there a cost for it? I think that got answered, but it sounds like Bright Action is the host and there is a hosting fee, but do you want to talk any more about that other than what was already shared in the answer?
Yeah, absolutely. So Community Climate Solutions is we work with cities, and so we use the Bright Action platform. And so the way that we work is it's just an annual fee for the program, and that includes the platform. We're trying to do this as low cost as possible to really support communities. And so our pricing is between $5,000 and $10,000 a year for the program. And then for cities up to about 200,000 population. For really big cities, it might be more. It just depends on what they're looking to do. But the basic program is between $5,000 and $10,000 a year. We do have a small city program that's a little bit less expensive with a little bit less platform access or platform features, but more affordable. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Some of these are going to be pretty straightforward. We can get through them quick, and then there's bigger picture questions I'd like to get to. So somebody's asking about, seeing a template we could apply to our community. I think that's what you've shared, but is there anything more you want to say about how a community could take something like this and replicate it or use it? What would be their next steps?
Absolutely. So I would say, I'd be happy to talk with them and help them to identify some resources. When we work with communities, we have a whole set of tools, of engagement tools and programs already built out that we use to support communities. And so I'd be happy to talk with them and see if it can be helpful. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's somebody who sounds like they have an experienced voice who's asking, what are the incentives for users to put data in the sites? How do you get people to participate? So I know there was a little bit of an answer there, but you want to go into a little bit more about why are people doing it? It's so hard to get them to do stuff. Why are they doing it?
That is such a good question. So in creating the Bright Action platform, it was incredibly important to us to really honor and protect the privacy of our users, because for exactly that reason, people don't want their information shared. So we have a really strong firewall in between the user's information that they enter and anything that's visible to the public or even to other users. So the users decide whether other people can see. They can opt into sharing a couple of their high-level things like how many actions they've completed, or how much they've reduced. if they choose to, but if they don't, then their information is not visible to anyone. And we only provide information to our cities or counties on the aggregate level. So they're not able to see any information by user at all.
Okay, but there is a back end so the user can track their own progress. That was one of the other questions, right?
Yes, the user can, exactly. So we are able to show the user their progress. If they fill out the household profile, we know where they're starting from. And then for each action, we have robust analytics to see what the impact is for that action. And so we can track their progress and they can see how they're doing. In fact, that's what we're going to be adding into our system. It's something we're going to call the 2030 challenge, which encourages folks to step up and complete that profile and then choose actions and see if they can get their household below 50%, which is the global goal by 2030.
Okay, this looks like another experienced voice here. It says, do you have a button where low-income families can sign up for free weatherization and efficient appliances from the Energy Savings Assistance Program or other low-income weatherization programs? Just, I think I can see where they're coming from. You've got them. How can you just deliver them right into the right programs?
Right, absolutely. So for all of our cities, all of our programs, on every single action, we have the opportunity to load in those resources. And so the resources that are available for low-income folks, those resources are in the system, and they specifically say right on the title of the resource that they're low income, so they're identified right away. And then the power of having the engagement initiatives that go along with the platform is that in the engagement itself, we can highlight those. So if we're having a meeting, if there's a team meeting that's happening on transportation, then rebates and like swap out your car, all the wonderful incentives that we have, say for EVs for income households, those will be right in the information that's provided in that team meeting on transportation. So people are introduced to those resources directly through engaging with the program, as well as being able to find them just on the site itself.
Okay. I really like this question we got from somebody who is not a city worker. So now we're a little bit less nuts and bolts, a little bigger picture. She says she's a local resident with some experience influencing their city to adopt a cap and implement its recommendations. The cap levies no requests on my city government, and the city did not plan resources to implement any of its recommendations, talking about it collecting dust. So she's asking, what can we do to make these recommendations enforceable and to fund recommended actions within city budget cycles? So the big one.
That is a big one. And Kirsten, it would be great if we can both chime in on this one. So, I mean, before doing this work, I was, in my own community, showing up at council meetings and advocating for our city to make bold goals and fund it. And so I really understand that question. And I know that it's tough. And so I would say that the most important thing is continue to really make your voice heard and have folks in the community really step up and talk with your elected leaders and let them know how important this is to you. We do have a free version of our site that anyone can go use in California. So if you go to action.app, anybody can go use our site and learn about solutions. And sometimes learning about solutions is one of the most powerful things, because then you can go and talk to your elected leaders and say, hey, I know we've got these solutions. This is what they look like. And hey, we can move this forward. So I would just say advocating, and also for the cities we work with, sometimes cities really want to move some of these policies forward, but they get pushed back from residents. And so having a platform like ours is a great way to help the community start to understand what some of the solutions are and why they're so important, like what are heat pump water heaters and why do we want to consider really mandating them. And so it can really help to support stronger policies by having the community be more aware of what those solutions are. I hope that was helpful. Kirsten, please.
Yeah, Kirsten, chime in too.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. This is really the Community Climate Solutions Bright Action Show, so I'm happy to be here to support. I answered this in another question as well. I think Lisa kind of hit it, and I'll riff on it a little differently, where 40 to 60% of many city emissions are household, and then of the commercial sector, there's only a really small portion that the city itself is controlling, and many of the cities have already done a lot of their energy efficiency upgrades. They're working on switching to EVs. So it can be very difficult for a public agency to mandate performance in the private sector in our current setup. So I look at it as a and it sure would be great if like all of the systems were there where it would just automatically, these household activities were low emissions. But it's mutually reinforcing. As residents, we can get folks to immediately reduce their emissions. And as they're doing that, they get educated and have more political will and support for policies that create those systems change. So in my mind, it's not, I can't fix it by myself. Even my group of neighbors can't fix it, but together we can take some actions that start to move the needle while we're also working on systems change. It's a yes and situation.
Thank you. So, and tying this together, so there's a few questions here on enforcement and just this platform doing such a good job engaging the community members. And then you've got an actual climate action plan that needs to be enforced and needs to be tracked with numbers. What has your experience been translating the action from what's happening with these challenges and these platforms to being trackable emission reductions?
So that is a fantastic question. And I think someone asked me to put the free version link in the chat. So I'm just adding that in here. So if you're interested in checking out the free version, if you have a program in your community, when you sign up to the free version, it'll take you to your community program. So it is really, sorry, can you say the question again? I was trying to paste the link and distracted myself here.
No problem. Maybe Kirsten, you want to chime in while she's doing that?
Yeah, no, I got the link pasted. If you could just remind me, the question was.
Oh, sure. I was just talking about making the connection to enforcement from the platform program that you all are sharing. How do you track emission reductions?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So all of the actions are self-reported on our site, and we encourage communities not to provide like Teslas as a prize for participating, because that tends to encourage people to not be honest. But generally speaking, if you don't have huge prizes for participation, most people will self-report accurately. So all of the tracking that we do on our site is self-reported. So it's not something that we generally would put into the emissions inventory. However, it certainly could be mentioned in an annual report. And just to show you the analytics, every time a user on our site completes an action, we save 8 different data points. We know the impact on carbon emissions, we know the impact on the amount of kilowatt hours or therms or gallons of gas saved, gallons of water. And then we also know the financial impact. So we do have a really, really robust set of data that we're gathering that can also provide cities some really good insight into, on the aggregate, what actions are people taking or what are they working on, and help to maybe inform some of the decisions around
Yeah, and I would just add quickly that one of the reasons we selected the Bright Action tool was it became really apparent that for public agencies, even though it's not a legally trackable emissions number out of the platform, people were very, 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 very interested in seeing a specific emissions reduction metric tied to the environmental outreach. And so that's been a really key factor for us going forward. One other thing that Lisa didn't mention was we've been showing examples of public agency using the platform, but we were also very excited because within the Santa Cruz County site, if we have a large business that wants to have its own challenge with a bunch of its different departments, it can also pay to get a customized front landing page, but the back end data goes into our local based on geography action. So the platform's very flexible for public agencies. There's large universities that use this, as well as the cities and counties. So that's an exciting feature as well that Lisa didn't get a chance to point out.
Yeah, thank you, Kirsten. Yeah, so we do programs for companies, organizations, universities, and all of it feeds back into your local members. So if a company in your area or a hospital or university in your area is using our platform, all those numbers will show up on your city site.
So, somebody dropped an interesting and probably important perspective here that it's not a question you necessarily need to answer, but it says, how can we shift the burden away from individual action to a systemic approach that makes the default option climate friendly for all daily activities at the grocery store, in a home, etc. So I want to invite you both briefly to comment on that, or any final comments you want to make before we close out today.
Yeah, I actually thank you for asking that question. That is so important. I think for me, prior to doing this work, I was working to advocate for strong policy, and it is so incredibly important that we have strong policy. But what I learned in looking into the agency that we all have, that 40% of US emissions are coming from those 5 household activities. When you include food choices. And a lot of those solutions for those household activities are affordable today, and are not only affordable, but can save households money. So we have the power today, all of us, to take action. And so I think the way that we look at it is like, it's an all hands on deck moment, where if all of us are doing the things that we can do today, that we can afford to do, that can help us save money and help the climate, that's powerful. And then we also need to use our voice to encourage the government and the city and state and federal government to do the actions that need to also help create that systemic change that we need as well. And the companies need to do their part. So I think that that's the way we look at it, is like all hands on deck. Let's empower people and help. The more you know, the more you can, you feel inspired to raise your voice to vote for systemic change. Kirsten?
Yeah, thanks so much, Lisa. I think 2 things I'd add to that are, one, kind of, I'm a child, like, right, I grew up in the 80s, and it was like 10 simple things you can do to save the earth. It's really individual. I think a pivot we're looking to is, even though it's individual action, doing it collectively, working together, building strong community cohesion. We've been talking a lot about emissions reduction here, but the cool thing about the platform and our engagement approach is that we're also going to be talking about resiliency. People need to work together in their neighborhoods with their businesses to think about, we're going to have climate change impacts, both how do we fend them off by reducing our emissions, but how do we also get ready? And so really working with a collective group of individuals as we build these leadership networks is really going to help our communities thrive better with we're going to have climate change impacts. So not only working together to reduce emissions, but we're working together to prepare for climate change does really have to happen at the individual household level or in small business groups. So governments aren't going to be able to solve that for us entirely as well. So again, all hands on deck, yes, and but working collectively, being kind of the pivot out of the individual action approach. Collective action with groups of individuals is really what we're focusing on.
Well, that's going to be the final word. I really appreciate it, Lisa and Kirsten. Thank you all so much for your engagement, for great questions. Thanks for being here. We're going to email out the recording and the slides, and we will invite you next time to join us. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thanks.
Bye.